Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another episode of Jake Talks Star Wars, and today we are talking about Star Wars Visions. Today is Tuesday, October 28th. At least you're seeing this on Tuesday, October 28th. And tomorrow, the 29th, Wednesday, the 29th of October, Star Wars Visions Volume 3 is dropping on Disney+. It is some brand new Star Wars that's coming to us tomorrow, and that is very, very exciting. This is the first time that Jake Talk Star Wars YouTube channel is getting brand new Star Wars to follow. So this is exciting. First time we got brand new Star Wars to cover. So I decided today that I would release my thoughts on Volume 1, specifically Volume 1 of Visions, and I'll tell you why here in a second. So I recorded this prior to Tuesday, but today I decided to watch some of, not all of it, but some of Volume 1 of Visions, because Volume 3 is back to the anime studios. Quick history on Visions. Star Wars Visions Volume 1 got started and was anime studios. It was a great way for Lucasfilm to kind of allow anime studios to kind of play in the sandbox. Say, hey, use the Star Wars beats, the story beats, the maybe not even the characters, but just the idea of Star Wars and the spirit of Star Wars to create your own stories in this universe. So what we got in Volume 1 was 9 very unique stories. I think only one of them included characters we were familiar with. The rest of them included all new characters. The rest of them had stories that were not really meant to be taken as canon at all. But they're very, very unique stories, very unique styles of storytelling in each one. And of the 9 that were released in Volume 1, 3 of them are being continued in Volume 3. Now, Volume 2 is in the middle. Volume 2 went international, right? So Volume 1, Japanese anime studios. Volume 2, studios from all over the world. Volume 3, we're back to the same studios from Volume 1. So Volume 3 is going to be releasing tomorrow, the 29th, and is going to continue, I think, 3 of the storylines we saw start in Volume 1. 3 of those storylines, and I've got them written down here. I think I've got them all written down here. So the first one they're continuing the storyline from The Duel. The Duel is a really visually stunning, visually interesting story from Volume 1. It's all in black and white, except for lightsabers and laser bolts and like little flashing lights on droids and things like that. Everything's in black and white. Everything else is in black and white. So having everything in black and white with only a few exceptions is very, very visually striking. What else is striking about this? The fact that it's in black and white, but it's also kind of, I was watching it again today, and it's kind of grainy. It has like imperfections in the art style is very unique, but it has like imperfections. It's almost trying to recreate this feeling of watching an old black and white film. Right? If you ever watch a really old black and white movie, even if they've been remastered, sometimes there's still imperfections in the picture that are left over from back when it was on film. So it almost tries to recreate that. But the really neat thing that I liked about The Duel is that it is so unapologetically Japanese. And I say that because this is not a Star Wars story that borrows some Japanese elements. This is basically a feudal Japan story told with Star Wars elements. Like it's a Japanese story with Star Wars, not Star Wars with Japanese stuff, if that makes sense. Very unique story. I say very unique, but not really. It's a Ronin. It's a Ronin. It's a masterless guy who's kind of wandering. He finds himself in conflict with these bandits. What's unique about him is he's not really who we think he is. He's not really what we think he is. So it's very interesting from that perspective. And the whole thing just oozes Kurosawa, right? If you've ever watched a Kurosawa film like The Seven Samurai or any of the others, it really kind of oozes Kurosawa, which, again, makes sense, not just because these are Japanese anime studios, but because Lucas borrows heavily from Kurosawa-style elements, even when making Star Wars, right? There's a lot of elements in the Kurosawa films that make their way into Star Wars, and they kind of appear in Star Wars over and over again, right? Like, how many times have we told a Seven Samurai type story in Star Wars? At least a couple, right? At least once in the Clone Wars, at least once in Mandalorian. So at least a couple times. So The Duel, very interesting story, very unique story. We're getting a follow-up to The Duel in Volume 3. It's called Payback. So I'm excited for that. We're going to see another crazy lightsaber, I'm sure. So that'll be exciting. Interested for that. Another story that's being continued from Volume 1 is the story from The Village Bride. Now again, The Village Bride, similar to The Duel, it's not black and white, everything's in color. And it's not really highly stylized in the way that The Duel was. But it's similar in the style of, like, this is a very Japanese, feudal Japanese looking story with Star Wars elements, right? There's battle droids, there's stormtrooper armor, things like that. But it's a Japanese style story with Star Wars stuff, not necessarily Star Wars with Japanese stuff. So we get this Jedi who's on the run, flying a starship that looks a whole lot like a Z-95 Headhunter, by the way. Those of you who don't know, Z-95 Headhunters back in the old Expanded Universe days are like the precursor to the X-Wing. We even got them in the Clone Wars, I think, so they still are technically like a precursor to the ARC-170 and the X-Wing. But she's flying a Z-95, or at least something that looks like a Z-95, which is pretty darn cool. And she's going to find herself in conflict with these bandits that are haranguing a village, and she rescues the village and all these other things. So again, pretty basic, pretty straightforward story. Again, another Ronin Japanese style samurai, masterless samurai style story, but still very cool. So we're getting that continued in Volume 3 with a with a story called Lost Ones. So I'm excited for that too, because that was an interesting story. And then the third story that's being continued in Volume 3 is The Ninth Jedi. The Ninth Jedi. The Ninth Jedi is probably the one I'm most excited to see continued of the ones that are being continued. It's probably the one I'm most excited to see continued because it's such an interesting story. You've got this, it's set in the Star Wars galaxy. You've got the Force, you've got Sith, you've got Jedi, but it's not really recognizable, right? We don't have any mention of the Empire. We don't have any mention of a rebellion. There's no characters that we're aware of that are crossing over. So this could be happening, if you try to make it fit in canon, it could be happening at any point in history. It could be happening 10,000 years ago. It could be happening 10,000 years in the future. We just don't know. But the whole premise is that the Jedi are kind of persona non grata once again, and the Sith are kind of running things in most of the galaxy. They have Jedi hunters that run around. Having lightsabers is illegal, things like that. So you've got this ruler of a planet who decides he wants to help rebuild the Jedi Order because he thinks they're important, the Margrave, this ruler of this planet, and he commissions a guy to build him some lightsabers and sends out a message to get all these Jedi to come visit him to get their lightsabers and to rebuild the Jedi Order and do this whole bit. There's conflict. The daughter of the man who made the lightsabers is our main character. He creates the lightsabers, and she ends up being our main character. He's carried away by Jedi hunters. She delivers the lightsabers to the Margrave. The Margrave ends up having conflict with a bunch of Sith who took the place of Jedi to get these free lightsabers. And that's kind of the story. It ends with our heroes going off into the sunset to rescue the father, right? To rescue the Sabersmith himself. I really like the story. It's one that I definitely want to see continued. I want to know more what happens. But I like it too because they kind of go in a different direction with lightsabers and with the Force and with lightsaber crystals and all that kind of stuff. It reminds me a lot of the early concepts that Lucas had for lightsabers. Like if you read some making of things, at one point lightsabers were a very basic weapon that everybody, even stormtroopers, had, and anybody could use them and anybody could learn how to use them. So it's almost kind of like that, because you've got characters who just pick one up and then kind of learn how to use the Force, rather than being, oh, you're super special, you're a Jedi, you have the Force and others don't. It's kind of a different, little bit of a different vibe in that regard. So it's kind of cool. What I really love is the way the lightsabers themselves work. Like anybody can pick one up and flip it on, and the minute they flip it on, their allegiance. Whether they're light side, dark side, not sure. Their allegiance like that second. We're not bleeding kyber crystals in this story. These crystals, if you're on the dark side, they are red. If you hand it to somebody who's on the light side, it turns blue or green or whatever else immediately. If you don't have a strong connection to the Force, the blade is there, but it's clear. It's like practically invisible. And as your connection gets stronger, you'll see that saber change color during the fight, in the middle of the action sequences. So that's kind of cool too. So a lot of cool stuff for the Ninth Jedi. The sequel in Volume 3 is called Child of Hope. So guess, 3 guesses on what that's about, and the first 2 don't count. So it should be a lot of fun tomorrow. I'm excited for that. And then some of the other stories I watched today. The Twins. The Twins is a story from Volume 1 that is highly stylized. And it's not really canon at all. We've got these 2 twins who are born of the dark side to use the dark side and everything else. And one of them decides that he doesn't want to use the dark side, and then they fight. The storyline isn't that strong. It's kind of basic, and it's really just a mechanism to deliver some really incredible action sequences, some really incredible action sequences, things like that, which again, is fine. It's pretty cool. The last one I'll talk about is probably my favorite from Volume 1. It's probably my favorite. It's called Elder. And Elder is a story about a Jedi Knight and his Padawan just cruising the galaxy, and they end up going to this planet because there's a report of like a strange person on the planet, and they got to check it out. And the ship reminds the Jedi Knight of a Sith ship, but he's never seen one in person. He's only ever seen hollows. Only ever seen pictures of them. So, long story short, they end up encountering this guy who is like a Sith person. He's an old, like terribly old, but he fights the Padawan. He fights the Jedi Knight. He's defeated. So it's very cool lightsaber combat. Again, very highly stylized lightsaber combat of like, kind of samurai style lightsaber combat is very, very cool. But just the whole thing, I really kind of find interesting because it scratches that itch of watching Jedi do Jedi things, right? It's 2 Jedi out doing what they do. They interact with this guy. They fight with this guy. They're victorious. But the stories, the way the Jedi Knight talks to his Padawan and teaches his Padawan these lessons is really unique and is really interesting. I like that. So that's my favorite from Volume 1. I understand it's probably not everybody's favorite because, again, it's just very basic boilerplate. They arrive, fight the bad guy, wisdom, moving on. But again, pretty cool story. I like that from Volume 1. But we'll see what else we get tomorrow, right? So those are just 3 stories we know that are being continued. There are 6 others that are totally new that we're getting tomorrow. So I'm excited for Visions tomorrow. I'm going to watch Visions tomorrow. Now, I work regular jobs, so I'm going to try to watch Visions tomorrow, and I'm going to get my thoughts, my reviews and thoughts of Visions up as soon as possible on the YouTube page. But you will probably be seeing first impressions on Instagram or on Threads before my video gets published. But Visions releases tomorrow on Wednesday. I'm going to try to get my review of Visions out late Wednesday or Thursday, or sometime on Thursday, so that way it's still available before people watch it, maybe not. But I'm definitely trying to get that out as soon as possible. But follow me on Threads, follow me on Instagram to see those first impressions kind of live as they come in. And then I'll get a video up about Visions as soon as possible after that. But yeah, guys, if you came by to listen today, thanks for coming by. Thanks for listening. I'm looking forward to Visions tomorrow. I'm looking forward to hearing what you think of Visions and what you think of our new Star Wars for this year, for this half of the year. And yeah, let me know what you think. What did you think of Volume 1? What are you looking forward to most in Volume 2? And let me know in those comments below. Hit me up on Threads and on Instagram for those first impressions starting sometime tomorrow. And I'll catch you guys later. Remember, take care of each other out there. And as always, may the Force be with you.